Hello friends, let us take 10 more questions and learn in this video. As always, keep your copy of the Constitution of India handy or the app on your mobile phone. Pause the video after every question, mark your own answer and then proceed to listen. So we are going to discuss question numbers 51 to 60 today. That was posted on the Telegram channel. You can check in the description below to know the link. Question number 51 was, which of the following statements is correct regarding the Union Council of Ministers? Now, the first statement says that the Minister of State cannot attend a cabinet meeting. Now, I'm sure you know that there is no such prohibition. Ministers of State, they do not attend cabinet meetings regularly because they are not part of the cabinet as such. However, whenever they are invited, they can definitely attend the cabinet meeting, and they'll be invited whenever there is an issue that is being discussed about the ministry that they are concerned with. So this is not a correct statement. Second one says cabinet takes decisions through consensus. Now this is actually not true because it's not through consensus. Usually they try for consensus, but otherwise it will go with the majority, or depending on the political equation, the leadership will also be involved in that. But yeah, it's not necessary to take decision through consensus. So this is also wrong. Then C, there is no limit on the member strength of the cabinet. Now, if you see Article 75, Clause 1A, which was added after an amendment, it says that the total, strength of the Council of Ministers cannot be more than 15% of the total members of the House of People. So, since the Council of Ministers is limited, of course, indirectly there is a limit on the strength of the cabinet as well. So there is no explicit limit, but it is implicit. So there is a limit, and hence this statement is also wrong. So of course fourth statement must be correct, but let's read it anyway. Only the President of India shall administer the oath of office to the minister. Yes, that is correct. And we have got another question coming on similar lines. So if you see Article 75, Clause 4, you read that, it will say that before a minister enters upon his office, the President shall administer to him the oath of office and secrecy. So it says the President shall administer. So this is the correct statement. Please read the articles that I asked you to refer here. Moving on, the next question was this. A person can enter which of the following offices by subscribing to an oath or affirmation before only the President of India? Just now we saw Minister of Union is definitely there, and in fact you will see that they are the only ones who are there. So for example, for the Vice President of India, you may like to refer to Article 69. For the judges of Supreme Court of India, you might like to see Article 124, specifically Clause 6. And the CAG of India, I'm sure you know, is Article 148, specifically Clause 2. So in all these places, if you go and see, you'll read that it will say that the person shall make or subscribe before the President or some person appointed in that behalf by the President. So there's an option that somebody else may also be able to administer the oath of office to these officers. So the only one correct here is our third option, the third Minister of the Union. Moving on, the next question, which of the following statements is or are correct? Dissolution of the Council of Ministers leads to the dissolution of the House of People. Now that is absolutely not necessary. If the Council of Ministers gets dissolved, why will the House of People be dissolved? It is totally possible that the other parties or another alliance, they may be able to form the government. So we see this very often that, for example, you saw earlier how in Maharashtra last year, 2019, Chief Minister took oath and then ultimately had to resign. So the dissolution took place, but the House doesn't get dissolved. Similarly, the second statement, dissolution of the House of People leads to the dissolution of the Council of Ministers. Now, this is a correct statement because see, when the House of People is not there, which ultimately gives the authority to the Council of Ministers, then on the dissolution of the House, there has to be a dissolution of the Council of Ministers. I understand there is some confusion that remains as to how Council of Ministers is dissolved when we know that there shall always be a Council of Ministers, even the Supreme Court judgment in UN Rao. So see, since there is no Lok Sabha, since there is no Lok Sabha on dissolution, the authority vested in the Council of Ministers has been uprooted. Dissolution simply means loss of authority. And they continue to give advice to the president, which is not binding, by the way, because the president cannot act without the advice. So, Council of Ministers gets dissolved. It simply means that they are now reduced to just a caretaker capacity. So, don't get confused when we use the word dissolution. That's why I see some people got confused here. Anyway, moving on, next question was this: which of the following is not, again let's mark not, among the fundamental duties of the citizens laid down in the Constitution of India? In the previous videos I did ask you to read the fundamental duties, so I believe you have done that. So these kind of questions should not be difficult anymore. The only one which is not part of the fundamental duties is the third statement here, protecting the monuments. This is actually part of the DPSPs, specifically in Article 49 of the Constitution. You might like to read there. So other than that, all three, A, B and D, they are part of fundamental duties, but not too many of you got this correct. Next question: an amendment to which of the following schedules of the Constitution of India is not deemed as an amendment under Article 368? It is not considered an amendment under Article 368, though it will be an amendment because we are amending the schedules. Let's see, second schedule. Now, second schedule, I'm sure you know, it is divided into 5 parts. Part A, B, C, D and E. Part B has been removed. So Part A is the salary, allowances, etc. of the president and the governor. B used to be the ministers, but that's no longer there. C relates to the presiding officers of the houses. D is the judges, and E is the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. Quickly, that is what they are. Now, all the references in the Constitution, wherever these salaries, allowances, etc. are mentioned, they all very clearly say, and for example, you can go and read Article 59, which deals with the emoluments of the President of India. Article 59, it will say that it is to be determined by law by Parliament. So, Parliament determines it by law. Till that time, it was provided in the second schedule. So, now whenever the Parliament amends that law to increase the salary generally, then it automatically gets reflected in the second schedule. So, it is done by an ordinary law made by the Parliament. So, this is not deemed as an amendment under Article 368. Now, fourth schedule, we know it talks about the seats in the Rajya Sabha. Now, it is not going to get any extra protection. The only protection and why some people may have been confused is because if this amendment takes place due to any activities done under Article 2 or Article 3, then under the protection given in Article 4, such amendment will not be considered under 368. But that's a very specific situation. When there is a reorganization or new territory, something like that. For example, the Jammu and Kashmir reorganization happened recently. Now that amended the fourth schedule, but it will not be considered as an amendment under Article 368. So in general, when fourth schedule is to be amended, Article 368 will be invoked. So never be confused. Now, fifth schedule and sixth schedule, if you read in the fifth schedule paragraph number 5 and in the sixth schedule paragraph number 21, please do that while I say if you read, please do read always. Fifth schedule paragraph number paragraph number 7 in fifth schedule and paragraph number 21 in the sixth schedule, they very clearly mention that any amendment to these provisions shall not be considered as an amendment under Article 368. Please read that. So 1, 3 and 4, these three statements are the correct statements here. So never be confused. These are the schedules where any amendment in general is not considered to be done through the provisions of Article 368. Next question. Which of these is or are correct regarding the ordinance making power of the President? Before we answer this question, let's quickly capture one important aspect of the ordinance making power. I'm sure you know that it is provided under Article 123 for the President of India. if you see the very first sentence, please look at that right now. The very first sentence says that if at any time, except when both houses of parliament are in session. That means the only situation when an ordinance cannot be promulgated, it is when the both houses are in session. Otherwise, at any other time, ordinance can be made. Anyway, let's see some of the options here. It can be retrospective, yes. By the way, the other thing that you should also know about the ordinance making power of president, or in similar way the governor also, that the power is exactly in the same domain, exactly in the same spirit, and will also have the same force as any legislation made by the parliament. So whatever parliament can legislate upon, president can make ordinance upon. Right? The only difference between an ordinance and an enactment of the parliament is that the enactment is perpetual; it has to be specifically repealed. An ordinance has a life to itself, after which it has to be extended; otherwise, it will lapse. So because a law of parliament can be retrospective, hence ordinance can also be retrospective. Of course, there is a differentiation of law on civil matters and criminal matters, but that's fine. The possibility is, it's saying it can be, so yes, it can be. It can modify, repeal an act of parliament. Since an act of parliament can do that, an ordinance can also do that. It can amend the Constitution of India. Now, this is where some confusion remains. There is no explicit clarity regarding this provision to amend the constitution through an ordinance. Can it be done? Can it not be done? It's not been clearly stated. But if we connect different judgments of the courts, then it is clear that ordinance power is in the sphere of only the ordinary legislative power of parliament. And hence, the amendment to the constitution being a constituent power, this cannot be done by the president's ordinance making power. Okay. The fourth statement says it can be promulgated only when Lok Sabha is not in session. This we read in the beginning itself, that it is not necessary even when Rajya Sabha is not in session, or let's say both houses are not in session, then also it can be done. So only the first two statements here are correct. Moving on to the next question. Which of the following statements is or are correct regarding the members of Council of Ministers of the Union? Decently straightforward question. First statement: a person who is not a member of either houses of parliament can be appointed a member of Council of Ministers. Can be appointed. Yes, we know for 6 months it is totally possible. You are seeing the drama that is going on in Maharashtra as I make this video today. So up to a maximum time of 6 months, it is totally possible for someone to become even the Chief Minister or Prime Minister. Then second statement says nominated members of parliament cannot become a member of the Council of Ministers. No, that is not necessary. There is no such restriction. The basic necessity for somebody to become a part of the Council of Ministers, to become a minister, is that they should be or they should become within the time a member of parliament. Now, whether they are elected member, they are nominated member, there is no such differentiation. So only the first statement is correct here. And not a bad performance, though it can become better. Next question: which of the following statements is or are correct? The office of Leader of the House is not a statutory position. Correct. It is provided under the rules of the House. It is not in the Constitution also. The office of Leader of Opposition is a statutory position. That is also correct. There is an act of parliament called the Salary and Allowances of the Leader of Opposition in Parliament, Act 1977. So that means before that even this was not a statutory position. However, since 1977 it has become a statutory position in our country. So actually both of these are the correct statements. The correct answer should be C here. That's Mr. Y.B. Chavan. He was the first Leader of Opposition after this act was made. You may like to read more about him and the performance. Anyway, next question. Which of the following is correct regarding the Vice President of India? Now, the first statement says an election to fill a vacancy in the office of Vice President can be held beyond 6 months of occurring of the vacancy. Now, I'm sure we know that for most of the offices, whenever there is a vacancy, the time period provided to conduct the election is 6 months. However, if you read Article 68 Clause 2, which deals with the Vice President of India, you'll see that it very clearly says that, if you read it, an election to fill a vacancy in the office of vice president shall be held as soon as possible. So there is no time limit there. Hence, this is a correct statement. Then if you see, during the vacancy in the office of vice president, his or her functions are discharged by the Chief Justice of India. Now, if you see, during the vacancy in the office of vice president, his or her functions are discharged by the Chief Justice of India. In case of a vacancy of the office of vice president, nobody discharges the duties of the vice president, because vice presidents, one of the roles we know is in the Rajya Sabha, and that role is done by the deputy chairman of Rajya Sabha. Chief Justice of India has no role to play. Chief Justice of India is only there to fulfill the responsibilities of the office of president only, okay, not the functions of vice president. So anyway, so the correct answer is only option A here. Not a good performance, and this Justice Hidayatullah, who acted as the president when V.V. Giri had resigned. V.V. Giri was the vice president. Question number 60, which of the following is or are prescribed in the Constitution of India? So mind it, prescribed in the Constitution of India. They may be correct statement, but may not be in the Constitution of India. Okay, election to the office of the president to be held by secret ballot. I'm sure we all know this is correct. This is in the Constitution of India. And it is done by secret ballot only. Statement 2, election of members of the Rajya Sabha to be held by open ballot. Now this is correct, it is held by open ballot, but it is actually not in the Constitution of India. It is provided under the Representation of People's Act 1951. Similarly, third, election of the members of Lok Sabha to be held by secret ballot. This happens with secret ballot, but again this is not in the Constitution of India. This is also in the Representation of People's Act. So the only correct statement here you have is the statement number 1. In this video I thought I'll leave you with the Chanakya's guidance to the rulers. In Arthashastra he writes, Praja sukhe sukham raja, praja nam tu hite hitam, natma priyam hitam raja, praja nam tu priyam hitam. It has a very interesting meaning. I could not find a very suitable English translation, so I translated it myself. You can read, and I hope it makes sense to you. Pardon me if there is some misrepresentation there. I tried my best. So I'll see you in the next video with question number 61 to 70. Till then, study well. Thank you very much.